Ms. Kovesi, thank you very much for taking the time to talk to N1.
Thank you for your interest.
So here we are a year after an interview in which you stated very clearly that the Croatian government is creating somewhat of a smokescreen around the work of EPPO in Croatia. A year after, we have a first conflict of competence and the decision in which the Croatian state prosecutor ruled that they're in charge in the case of former health minister and the joint criminal enterprise to overpay medical equipment. So is this now phase number 2, or what is to be expected next?
Okay, this is the most evident proof that something has to change, and especially in the Croatian legislation, because probably the things are not very clear. And we said that the way how the legislation is in Croatia is against the regulation, and this is why we have this situation. The difference is that first time it was just a level of statements, but now we have a decision of the general prosecutor on this conflict of competence.
Do you see this as related? Is this the second phase?
Well, I wouldn't say as a second phase. I would say again that this problem exists and it has to be solved. Otherwise, probably we will have the third conflict of competence and the fourth of the 100 conflict of competence, because the issue will not disappear. The way how it's implemented now in the legislation, it's totally against the regulation. It shouldn't be the general prosecutor who solves this conflict of competence, because it's obvious that there is a wrong interpretation or a different interpretation between the EPPO regulation and between the level of competence that the national prosecutors have or EPPO have. And this problem can be solved only by the European Court of Justice. This is why we all the time we insisted that this legislation has to be changed, and EPPO should have the possibility to appeal this kind of decision, or if not, the decision should have been taken by the court, because in front of the court you can raise this conflict of competence. There are multiple issues here, because if we speak about this specific case, the second, I would say not the second case, because in the first case it was not any decision. But about this specific case, in each we have a decision of the general prosecutor. I would say that this is very unique for the EPPO.
Why?
We had conflict of competences also in other member states, but this was very unique for us and very difficult to understand. Why? Because we were not allowed and we didn't have any possibility to express an opinion. And just in a short words, I was general prosecutor of Romania for 6 years. I had to solve hundreds of conflict of competencies. And for me, it was very difficult to take a decision without having the opinion of both prosecutors involved in the conflict, or without seeing both cases. Even when I had both opinions of both cases, maybe I had doubts. But for me, it's very difficult to understand how you can decide in a conflict that it's competence of EPPO or it's competence of USKOK without have anything from the EPPO, without knowing the facts, because you have to see the case, or at least to have an opinion from the prosecutor. This is what happened. This is why for us it was very difficult to understand. And again, this way to solve the conflict of competence, it's again the EPPO regulation. It's against the European legislation.
When we ask the state attorney, he says that this was the only possible decision that could have been made, and that this was clearly the case for the state prosecutions. And we had 2 parallel investigations. How is this possible?
Well, I disagree, obviously, because it was our competence. And if maybe the general prosecutor would have asked the opinion of the EPPO, maybe his assessment or this situation would allow him to reach a different conclusion. I'm convinced about this. But the conflict was solved very fast without asking any opinion of the EPPO, so for me it's very difficult to understand how he could reach the opposite opinion. But it's obvious that in this case we have 2 different opinions. I do not say that I'm right. I know that I'm right. Probably Mr. Tudrudic will say, no, I am right, not Ms. Kovesi, and the citizens will not understand anything. But in this situation, when I pretend that I'm right, you pretend that you are right, there is the European Court of Justice. And in these situations, we shouldn't be the ones who decide on this. We should raise a preliminary question, and we should let the court to decide it.
Croatian state prosecutor accused EPPO in Croatia for keeping him in the dark about the investigation. So whose decision was it, and on what grounds was it taken?
We have some obligations in the EPPO regulation in which we have to inform the national authorities about different steps when we open some investigations, when we do some things in our cases. All these situations are very clear stipulated there. I can assure you that in all the cases, not only in this one, but in all the cases of the EPPO, we totally fulfill this obligation to inform the national authorities, in this case the general prosecutor. So, this decision to inform the national authorities, it's a decision that is taken by the permanent chamber. The permanent chamber, it's a panel composed of 3 European prosecutors from 3 different member states, and their main role is to monitor and to decide in the cases. So, in this case, we had 3 European prosecutors from 3 different member states who look at this issue and who decide if we can or if we cannot send any information. But I assure you that in all our decisions, we fully respected the provision of the regulation. If someone thinks that we have to inform more or less, this can be solved when we will have the revision of regulation. But in the meantime, we have to respect what is written in the EPPO regulation. Mm-hmm. And in this case, we fully respected all our obligations.
And how can the EPPO and DORG continue to work with mutual trust after this?
We have to work together. We don't have to like each other. We have to work together. And from my side, as the representative of EPPO, we are professionals. We have a very good team in Croatia. We have very good prosecutors. One of the most courageous prosecutors that we have in EPPO. They are all professionals and they will continue to work. Now, let's see if USKOK wants this. It's clear that in our activity, sometimes we can have different opinions. No? Only in a totalitarian system, everyone thinks the same, the prosecutor, the lawyer, the judge. This is not the case, because we have a strong democracy everywhere. No? So, we have to continue to work, but this has to come from both sides. But I can assure you that from our sides, my colleagues are very professional and they will continue to fulfill their duties, not only in relation with USKOK, in relation with the general prosecutor and with all the other authorities. It's something that they did it and they will continue to do it.
And in the eyes of the public, I mean, now we have a mess. How will they decide who to trust?
I can agree that these situations, these kind of conflicts, do not look good for citizens. But conflicts of competence is something that you have everywhere in Europe, and we can see this in the member states. The way how this conflict is solved is totally different. But now I cannot speak about USKOK. I know just what I see in the public space, so I think they are doing a good job and they have good prosecutors. But from the EPPO perspective, I can tell you that our team in Croatia, our European prosecutor, Ms. Tamara Laptoš, are one of the best prosecutors that we have in EPPO. I never saw such courage, such determination, so much professionalism, like I see in their hands. And they did a great job, outstanding activity, in spite of the difficulties. Less support than other European delegated prosecutors have in the other member states. A high workload, very complex cases. All the time they work under the pressure. And in spite of these difficulties, they had a great work. I think citizens trust in our work. And if I would say a message for the citizens now, I would tell them that a country is civilized if you have a full respect for rule of law. And our job as prosecutors in EPPO is to fight for rule of law and to fight for criminality. It's not easy. All the times there will be attempts against the rule of law. All the time you will have criminals who will do something. All the time we will have people who will be corrupted. But our main job is to fight with this. And we will do it at the best that we can do it.
You reported Croatia to the European Commission because of the procedure on the conflict of competence issues. Did you get an answer? Did you talk to the new commissioner about this issue?
We reported, because we have this obligation based on the mechanism of rule of law. We sent all the information that we could send regarding to this situation. Now it's for the Commission to move. Of course, I had at the beginning of the year a meeting with the new Commissioner for Justice. This was one of the topics, because it's not something that you usually have in EPPO, and it's something that it's connected to his portfolio. I don't have an answer from the Commission, but I think they can reply to this question, and it's their duty to move. Our duty was to inform them and to deliver them all the information regarding to this.
And you did that?
Yes, we did.
When we asked the Croatian authorities how come the procedure is not accordance with the EU law, they say it's the same in many EU countries. Is it up to the Commission then to push this forward?
Well, for me this cannot be a justification. No? Why do you have more criminality in this country? And you reply, well, there is criminality everywhere. I don't think this is a good justification, if you ask me. But okay, in spite of these things, indeed, there are also these situations in other member states. We reported this to the Commission also, but we didn't have the same situation in the other member states. In spite of the fact that this was regulated like this, we didn't have this conflict of competence. I will take the example of the country that I know best, Romania. We have the same. The general prosecutor has to solve a potential conflict between EPPO and the National Prosecution Office. Of course, we reported this to the Commission. Now it's for the Commission to solve to Romania to change the legislation. But we never had this situation. We never had a situation in which our clear competence was contested. We never had a situation in which the general prosecutor would solve a conflict of competence and he will establish that we are not competent without asking our opinion, without seeing what is in the case. So this was unique. This was unique.
And is it the same in that Spanish case, the Ayuso case that is often cited?
We have sent our opinion there. Also we have been invited to send observations. We have sent our considerations. Yeah.
You visited Croatia last year with a clear message that you'll be back if the issue of tax databases isn't solved. Has there been any progress on this? And do EPPO prosecutors in reality have that access that was basically agreed on a long time ago?
Of course I will be back. We are not in Croatia for 3 months or for 6 months. We are there to stay. And we are a new institution, that we have our duties, and we all have to adapt. We have to adapt to the national authorities, they have to adapt to us. So, of course, I will be back there. And the communication with the national authorities has to be improved. I think it improved, but still we have problems that are not solved. One of them is this access to databases. The discussions that we have in autumn when I had a meeting with them was that they would like to sign the same protocol with us and to give us the same access to databases like they did give for the national prosecutors. I assume that they are in discussions with the national prosecutors to clarify with them, and after that they will come back to us. I will check this. We are still looking at this. I had a constructive meeting with the chief of police. I understood all his concerns regarding the lack of resources and the level of specialization, but I think there is still room to improve this, and we really need to have more support from the police and to have the dedicated police officers to work in our cases. I'm confident that we will get there gradually. So there are still things on which we have to work, we have to discuss, and again, our prosecutors who are doing a great job in Croatia has to be supported. Here is not about competition. We are not there to compete with anyone. Our job is to fight with criminals, and this is what we are doing. If USKOK has results, I'm happy. If they investigate all the corrupt people in Croatia, I'm happy and I congratulate them. EPPO has to do the same. So this is our main goal, not to fight with the authorities, not to fight with the police, not to fight with the Ministry of Finance to get access to databases. And of course I will come in Croatia, probably in May. I don't know.
Okay.
Very soon.
And you invited Mr. Turudić to come to Luxembourg?
Yes. I invited him when I was in autumn in Croatia. I think we had a good meeting. Of course, we disagree for some topics, but we have to still communicate. I invited him to come to visit us in Luxemburg. I sent him an invitation in February. I proposed a period now in March. I understood that he's very busy and his agenda doesn't allow him to travel. Probably we will have this visit in May or in June. He's welcome to come. I'm sure he will find interesting things about the EPPO. I'm sure that we can prepare some presentation and to explain how we work, what is our competence, what are the decisions in the European Court. I think we can share views about our difficulties, including this one with the competence. And in the end, it's not about a personal relationship that we like each other or not. I think we are both professionals. I think we both have a high-level position, and I think this dialogue should be face-to-face, not via interviews. And if we have something that we do not like, we have to do it face-to-face.
Mm-hmm. So once again, very clearly, do you expect the Croatian government to change this legislation?
Yes, I expect this. Let's see if this will happen.
So I wanted to ask you also a general question about the work of EPPO. The whole atmosphere in the EU is very gloomy in the past weeks, and it seems that in the next phase everything will be revolving around defense budget and security issues. How do you see the EPP role in the next couple of years? Are you afraid of budget cuts? And will there be enough political will to understand how much money you're actually saving the EU?
Well, I think that it's the right moment to discuss again about the extension of the EPPO work for the circumvention of EU sanctions. This is the right moment. If we need more money, we have the perfect tool at European level. Because until now, yes, the number of sanctions increased, but the efficiency in imposing them and executing them was pretty low. First, because this was not a crime in all the member states. Now we have a new directive. This will be implemented as a crime in all the member states. We will have almost the same definition. Second, the level of involvement of the national authorities because of this was not equal, but from the perspective of EPPO, we already have a part of competence, and we have opened some cases in which we are investigating this typologies, this type of crimes, because one of the typologies smuggling, it's contraband, so we have already a little bit of competence. But I think now is the right moment to discuss about this. If it will be a political will or not, it's very difficult for me to predict. I'm still a prosecutor, so for me the things are white and black. Because here is not about Russia against Ukraine. Here we speak about totally two different things. In a tyranny, the justice serves some people. In a democracy, justice serves citizens. So I think it's not about Russia and Ukraine, it's about the democracy and tyranny. And for me the answer is easy. If we really want to hit Russians, and to make these sanctions to work, we have to extend the EPPO competence for the circumvention of EU sanctions.
We'll see if there will be enough political will. Ms. Kovesi, thank you very much for doing this interview.
Welcome.